I was curious to tell someone else about HIV, living with HIV, that it's not a death sentence. It's more of taking your meds and being positive and loving yourself and giving yourself away in order to help someone else. And that was my part of being a part of the story.
I came in prepared to tell a different story, a story about advocacy and empowerment and humor. And in hearing the stories of the women, the first day I was amazed and profoundly touched by the trauma that we all carry, that was a part of all of our stories, whether it's intimate partner violence or sexual assault. We all have some story of trauma in our group. And so that caused me to change my story deeply and to go to that place of my own trauma and to share it in a way that I think I perhaps had not shared in the past. So being a part of the group enabled me to go deeper within myself, which sounds strange that a group helps you be more of an individual, but it gave me strength and power in the sisterhood, in the storytelling project.
In the group setting, that I had more of a connection with my process of actually being told about my AIDS status, or my HIV status, and then how I was going to share it. And being in the group really helped me to zero in on just exactly what the story was and how to tell the story.
When I watch my story, it's a validation in a lot of ways because I use it as a learning tool in all aspects of life, whether it's on a date with someone in my personal life as to who I am, as a way of disclosing and discussing HIV. It's hard to believe it's just been a few months from then where I was literally homeless during the recording and making of this video. So today I just look with gratitude that I'm not there. Even when I was making the video in the homeless situation, it wasn't my state of mind. It was really going beyond homelessness, and today I am beyond homelessness.
It opens a lot of doors for me, and meeting women that are positive and learning and hearing their stories is an opening door for me to meet them and then be part of it. And I'm proud to be part of those women here in Empowerment and in the PWN membership, and which I'm really glad that I found, because I was lost for a long time, and especially when no one is willing to listen to my story as well.
If I could help newly diagnosed people to just know that it's not a death sentence. I've been living with it for 31 years and I'm healthy and I've had no negative responses from having HIV. I've only had positive outcomes from it. So I'm grateful I am positive. So it's just, it's my life.
Hello, I'm NoGranola17 and this is my dating profile. I'm a food lover and I love traveling and meeting new people. I'm looking for men who like women, ages 35 to 47, who are single, for new friends and long-term dating. You should send me a message if you're interested in grabbing a cup of coffee and you want us to get to know each other better. I traveled alone to chase my dream as a Fulbright scholar. I was accepted at a couple of schools in the States. None of them I've seen before. I just heard my friends say, "Don't go to Texas. There's nothing there. Choose Colorado. It's beautiful." So I packed my bag. I left my family, my boyfriend, and friends behind, and I took more than 9,000-mile journey across the Pacific Ocean to Boulder, Colorado, to begin my graduate study. Grad school was hard, much harder than what I had imagined. I spent hundreds of hours sitting in the library alone, trying to decipher books written by German and French philosophers. There were just two dents to understand. Sometimes I wondered, is it worth it to be so lonely and far away from home? There are some perks as a grad student though. You have a health insurance and you can take free health tests. During my first winter, 2 weeks after the new year, I got the diagnosis. I remember I was sitting in a small nondescript office with this lady in front of me. In her smooth, calm voice, she told me the diagnosis. I was numb. I walked back to the apartment in the freezing temperature. I called my boyfriend back home to let him know, and he said, "I'm sorry, babe. I'm really sorry." I knew that I had to finish writing my paper, so I got out of the apartment. I walked to the library, and it was dark and cold, and everything was so quiet. I felt nauseated. I turned back to the apartment. I wanted to talk to my boyfriend. I wanted to hear his voice. My call went unanswered. I tried again and again, but he never picked up. It took me close to 3 years to be okay. Yeah, I'm just finishing writing my thesis right now. It's about HIV and stigma. What? Well, I'm so glad you think it's a great subject. You know, I have a feeling that you will hear so much more about it.
I volunteered at Special Olympics, helped disabled veterans, worked with the homeless, took care of the elderly. I've always been an advocate. As I sit in the sterile room, feeling numb, my doctor, with tears in her eyes, told me my HIV test came back positive. She cried, and I comforted her, but it wasn't until I was safely back in my car that I let those words seep in. Each tear that spilled out felt searing and cleansing all at the same time. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I felt like a different person. My dreams had new meaning. On February 7th, 2007, I brought Liana May into the world. It was love at first sight, and I knew the world would never be the same because of her. As we drove home from the hospital, I remembered the cruel things people said to me when I was pregnant with her. How could you even consider bringing a baby into this world knowing I had HIV? How could I put her at risk? How could I be so selfish? How could I be a good mom? As I glanced in the rearview mirror, I knew that we were going to do great things, her and I. Liana is 9, but she's always been an old soul. As I hear her in her bedroom, reliving one of her favorite movies, Hairspray, at the top of her lungs. Good morning, Baltimore. As we get in the car, the quest for knowledge is always in full force. Mom, so what does it mean if someone's outsides don't match their insides? Why can't people just let each other be who they want and love who they want? Why doesn't everyone have a home? Can we take them home with us? It's cold and it looks like it's going to rain. Mom, so you have HIV? And Miss Penny and Miss Barb too? Do you know that most of my favorite people in this world have HIV? I wish people were nicer and weren't mean when they were afraid. How can we change it, Mom? This beautiful girl has only added more fuel to my fire to heal the world. She is both my biggest supporter and a fierce advocate in her own right. In the twists and turns of life, somehow we've been paired together. While it's my job to help her be the phenomenal adult she's meant to be, all the way she's been pushing me to do better, be better, demand better. I know I've always been an advocate, but with her by my side, I've become an activist. And we can change the world, one long car ride at a time.
During my high school years, my stepfather almost molested me. In 1981, I learned karate and became a brown belt. I've always been strong. I've always known how to protect myself. My world came crashing down when I found out that my husband had AIDS. He never told me that he had slept with men, women, and used drugs. After he beat me one last time, I told him that he will never see my face again. I thought I knew him because he was my childhood sweetheart. We grew up next door to each other. I trusted him. I believe I was completely healthy because I had tested negative for 2 years. But the day I was diagnosed with AIDS, the world became so dark. My heart was pumping so fast, I felt so cold. Even if the weather in San Francisco that day was sunny and a perfect time for walking around Marina close to the beautiful ocean with blue skies above. I did not see anything but death and darkness. I felt so alone. I felt that even God had forsaken me. I was hospitalized for 10 days with esophagitis this time. None of my family visited me in the hospital. They were fearful, shameful, and did not care about having a family member with HIV/AIDS. Even though I found out they had known all along about my husband's status, they hadn't told me. For 3 months I stayed in bed most of the time, and nurses came in to change my oxygen, my med patches, and even do my laundry. Still no family. I was totally alone to my pain and suffering. To eat anything at all, I had to swallow a spoonful of lidocaine to numb my throat and stomach. The day I started eating again, even though it was a little soft food, I felt I will beat this illness. I do believe dreams come true, regardless. Since those awful days, I have traveled and visited relatives in foreign countries. I graduated college, passed examination as a certified professional coder. I've worked for 25 years, then retired. Think about my relatives. I feel sorry for them because they lost the love that I had for them. I never gave up living.
Linda said, "Your lab results show HIV positive. Please make an appointment with infectious disease clinic at Denver Health right away." HIV positive happening to me. Why? What do I do? How do I navigate? Where do I go? When? Who do I talk to? Who do I tell? Dark February. Valentine's Day celebrated with my love, the man who infected me. To this day, I am deeply in love with him, my twin flame. Yes, he knew he was positive. He'd told me. Yet I really didn't think it would happen to me. I knew little about HIV, AIDS, resources, disclosure. I didn't realize how lethal that telling could be. I was homeless, staying with friends, expecting an active presence to clean and tend 3 kids. Dinner preparations, warm, steamy kitchen, water running, delicious aromas. Parents setting table, annoyed I was on phone all afternoon. Quibbles, criticisms, argument. I was ordered to leave their home. Before going, I handed them a note. "I want to tell you something very important." They read. Replied they already knew. My man is a known AIDS carrier. Further, they declared, I'd brought this on myself. The next few days swirled around me. Appointments, blood work, physical exams, learning. No time to think or talk. Counsel from ID Clinic social worker. HIV positive, not a death sentence. I discovered resources. Thought over and over what to do. Told my lover, my therapist, my psychiatrist. Called my sisters. One already knew. Told by my friend. What? My story, my news, my choice to tell. So, I found out how lethal this disclosure was. What I didn't realize was how empowering community is. My treatment team has directed me to excellent care. I'm becoming part of several brilliant therapeutic communities, many benefits, excellent medical care, food, therapy, attentive listening, classes, bus tickets, motel vouchers, rental and moving assistance, free cultural events. I meet brilliant, beautiful women, funny homegirls with fascinating stories. I'm learning, becoming healthier because of HIV positive in my body. I've found my true friends.
The storm rolled in fast and dark. I had just found out I was HIV positive. I began to spiral out of control. I was in denial for 15 years, and crack was taking my soul to the depths of hell. I begged God to give me a reason to live or let me die. I pleaded with him every day for over a week to just end me altogether. Exactly a week later, I found out I was pregnant. I remember screaming at him, "Is this a joke? How is this helping me? How could I bring a baby into the world knowing it would be sick, in pain, and would die?" I didn't think I could do it. A couple of months later, my doctor did a sonogram and told me that the baby could be healthy. And when I saw her on the monitor and heard her heartbeat, I knew I had a second chance for a better life. In rehab, I had my baby. Every time I gave her the antiviral meds 3 times a day, she fought me. It wasn't until I tasted it that I realized why. We had to go in for her blood draws once a month. I felt guilt and sadness every single time. When she was about 6 weeks old, I remember looking down at her on the bed and telling her all my fears. I told her I wanted to be a good mom. I wanted to be around as she grew up, and I wanted her to be healthy. I told her how sorry I was that she had to go through all this. She looked back at me so intently that I wondered if there was something wrong. And then all of a sudden, like a flower blooming, her entire face lit up into a smile. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I thank God every day for the tiny angel he sent to save me. I had only 4 T cells when I was pregnant with her. And when I had her, I was up to 12. Today I'm close to 800 and she is HIV negative. In 3 weeks, Bella turns 9. Her smile is still the most beautiful thing in my life.
When you come into my office, you know you are safe. When you come into my office, you know that I see you, I hear you, I know you, and I care for you. This was not always the case. It was my 3rd day in my new position as a social worker and care manager for women living with HIV. I was in a new office, in a new building, with new faces all around. My office was full of old belongings such as paperwork, old furniture, millions of paper clips, and long-lost office supplies. I was just given 15 files of women to contact, women I had never met and knew nothing about. It was my first participant meeting with you, and you left my office upset. You told me, "You're not listening. You don't know what you're doing." You wanted to talk about what was happening in your life, but all I heard was that you needed your Excel bill paid. You were right. I wanted to be better. The caretaker role had always come natural to me, but this felt different. I thought to myself, how can I show you that I care? How can I be helpful when I'm not quite sure what to do, when I don't quite understand? What you don't know is from that moment on, you continued to teach me. You allowed me to learn and to learn with you. You taught me not only about living with HIV, the medications, and the logistics. You taught me how to appreciate life and not to take things for granted, as you have thrived on so little, while I've always had so much. You have given me a voice in my efforts to help you find yours. You have pushed me out of my comfort zone to talk to people that I don't know, stand up in a crowd, speak up in moments of stigma and discrimination. You have helped me have difficult conversations by the conversations you have trusted to have with me. We have laughed when you came into my office beaming with joy. You were so proud of yourself for taking your 10th dose of medication in a row. I was proud of you too. We cried when you arrived after another relapse, thinking you were never going to beat this addiction. You have shown me the dark side of the world by talking about how people treated you differently and called you dirty, promiscuous, worthless, and that you had this coming to you, while also teaching me about resilience and strength by not allowing those words to define you. Our meetings are different now. You don't leave upset. You leave knowing you have been heard, and I know I am exactly where I'm meant to be.
I had just got beaten by my mother. So as I sat scared on the steps of my old nursery school, suddenly I felt the warmth of someone hugging me, but no one was there. It was God who hugged me around my shoulder that day and told me to stop crying. He said, "Don't worry, I got you." And he told me to go back home, even though going home was real scary for me. I knew I had to take care of my siblings, whatever it took to make sure they was okay. I was 8 years old. My stepfather fondled me from the time I was 2 to 8 years old. And he told me if I ever told my mom that he would kill me and her. So when I went home, I started having dreams. And I started dreaming about King Kong chasing me. My grandma used to always say, "Janice, go to Burger King and get me a strawberry." But I was so afraid because I knew King Kong was out there. So I looked around and I ran through the alley, thinking that King Kong didn't see me, but he did. He was chasing after me. Suddenly I heard the voice tell me, "Go in the shadows." I went in the shadows and I made my way to Grandma's house. And when I told him what he want with me, he said nothing. And then he disappeared. But in my life, King Kong was still there. I struggled with the life of alcohol and drugs for over 30 years. And even in them years, I caught HIV. I lost my children. I didn't even know what HIV was until I got sick. Now I have no choice but to live with HIV. But I have the choice to help others. That's my joy. Whatever I go through, if it's helping people or myself, I can make it with the voice of God, the voice I heard when I was 8 years old. Oh, thank you, God, for being there for me. All the challenges and the choices I made to become empowered. Here I am at the empowerment program, being saved from the world, living as my higher power wants me to live. What a loving God I serve that loves me for me. Like a ship been tossed and driven, I've been battered by the angry sea. When the storms of life start raging, then the fear fell on me. Sometimes I wonder what I've done that make that race so hard to run. And I say to my soul, take courage, 'cause God gonna make a way somehow.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. Damn, I don't even have ruby red slippers, let alone a home. Just like Dorothy, I am Kansas born and grown. But all these years later, I'm still searching for my home. But what is a home? Daniel and Renee, Matilda and Jose, James and Amanda is how I came to be. Just as my forefathers who have passed on, I myself must clear a path for my own. It's been exactly 1 year since I lost my home. For 15 years, I've tried to hold on. Everything that could and would did go wrong. I needed to depend on my man, and he was caught up in Candyland. I was caught up in someone else's song. Even when they say I sing off key, that's my reality, and my song is for me. Even if I never carry a note across the street, I can still clap my hands and keep a beat. I'm still in my journey to Oz. However, I'm fighting for a cause. HIV has never defined me, but it certainly has refined me. I always had a fear of being homeless, and I ran from it right into drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, mistaking all of this for security. I once crawled for sobriety. Today, I walk triumphantly. Although homelessness is my reality, I'm building a new home. I'm in my zone, speaking out to make sure HIV doesn't invade your home. I'm speaking out every day, in every way. Miss Dorothy got caught up into a tornado and was transported to Oz. It was there that she was transformed. My time in Oz is lasting much longer. My tornado is a cocoon. I, being the caterpillar within, is just waiting to bloom. Don't give up. I'm coming out soon. A home is more than just walls. A home is security, community, family, and support. I'm learning to love the home I'm building and the one that's already within me. The more I spend time with me, I'm loving the woman I see. Lifting my sisters one at a time, I see us all in this line. It's not just me going for mine. It's me and my sisters all the time. In closing, I say use your head. Stay safe in bed. And in this HIV game, you will stay 2 steps ahead. Again, I say safe is sexy. And that's how you get like Miss Alexi. No more flying monkeys. No more wicked witches. 'Cause I'm promoting some badass bitches. Dorothy, move around. Alexandria's back in town.
The doctor guaranteed me one of two things would happen in the next 2 years. I would be dead, or there'd be a cure. I remember being in the hospital after an overdose and being tested for HIV. The doctors told me they needed to test me because I was an IV drug user. A couple of months later, I sat at my parents' kitchen table in San Jose, and the phone rang. My dad picked it up and handed it to me. The doctor said I needed to come back to Arizona because he needed to talk to me. He said I was tested positive for the HIV virus. I was shocked. I was 26 years old and I had an 8-year-old son. I couldn't be HIV positive because in 1985 we thought it was a gay male disease. It was a death sentence. The news showed stories of people killing people with HIV, and some even thought that HIV positive people needed to be moved onto an island. I said to my dad, "I have HIV, I'm dying." My first thought was that I would never be a grandma. Today I'm 56 and my son is 39. He's lived his whole life knowing I was positive. We do the AIDS walk together. Once his family and his whole baseball team and their families walked with me. Even the dog went. I've had a very meaningful relationship with my boyfriend of 8 years. Before we started dating, he knew I was HIV positive, and he still pursued me. He kept asking me if I wanted to go to dinner, and for a month I turned him down, saying not tonight. Finally, when I invited him over to my house, he said jokingly, "No, not tonight." We were together for 8 years. He was HIV negative. He was on his way to my house one night and got in a car accident. He never made it out of the hospital. I've lived a full life with good friends who love me, a dog who's a great companion, and a big old baby. And I am a grandma. This will not kill me. I am stronger than HIV.
A pen hitting paper has been my solace for as long as I can remember. Trained in the art of detachment, the pen connected my head to the feelings of the heart. The process of writing was my process to feeling, relief, sanity. It was like through the pen, the paper heard me in a way I'd never been understood. Escapism began with cutting, continued with an eating disorder, and finally manifested into a drug addiction by the age of 15. There's a level of devastation at being numb to my mother's tears, knowing I was going to use again. My sister, who was carrying my nephew, asked if I wanted to meet him or die. I wanted to die. Blackouts, waking up in pee-soaked pants, needles, foil, bottles, despair, and incomprehensible demoralization. A needle in my arm, clothes and dignity falling to the floor to pay for the next hit. Crippled with anxiety, meth made the outside world insurmountable. My beanbag chair was my safety. Hours and days were spent watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia, tagging words I heard on paper. When my roommate needed to use the living room, I would drag my beanbag chair onto my bed. On December 28, 2010, I'd been up for 2 days on a relapse. Pending doom suffocated my every breath. That was the day I walked away. I used to think that I was broken, fragmented. Now I acknowledge that I have been whole. Wholly imperfect, wholly beautiful. 12 steps helped me ascend out of a world where I was a victim of life into taking accountability for my happiness. I have no regrets. What used to be shame has transformed to a tool that allows me to connect with women. We all have a story. We are all authors. Our truth needs no defending. My life work has become relating, helping, healing. I want the women I work with to know that I love them, not in spite of their flaws, but because of them. There is power in meeting someone where they are at. I used to give from a place of lack, needing acceptance, seeking love. Now I give from a place of abundance. I can love you as you learn to love yourself. Transforming a breakdown into a breakthrough is filled with error and rarely looks graceful. Courage is never delicate. My pen is no longer a means of keeping me separate from. Now I let it connect me to beauty.
I gaze into the room, and piercing eyes gaze back at me. Newly diagnosed, thinking they're alone in this world. As I sit down and introduce myself, "Hi, I'm Carrie, and I'm the client advocate here at the clinic." The air is heavy with emotion. We talk for a little while about the new diagnosis, life, this newfound relationship with mortality. I think about all the women and youth I've met over the years. All unique, all at different stages, but sharing one common thread as they fight for their wings. Each time we meet, we talk about the facts. We talk about medical advances. We talk about how nowadays we should still live to be old and gray. When it makes sense, I tell them they're not alone, that I'm 13 years into my diagnosis, that it gets better, that from challenge comes strength. But the journeys are different. Each person I meet, building trust, sharing a bond, growing from each other. They tell me about their dance with addiction, being ostracized by their families for living their truth, the guilt they carry for passing this on to their child before we knew how to stop it. I take each detail inside of me. It enmeshes with my own experiences, thinking I found the man of my dreams, sitting in a cold waiting room hearing those 3 little letters, bringing my daughter into the world, the hurtful things that people say, rebuilding myself. Each detail shared, building the picture of who I am. The journey thus far has been amazing. Each door I open holds a different story, a different narrative shaping my life, a different pair of wings waiting to grow.
I live in a cocoon, shielding myself from the pains of the universe. I lost my mother at 6. and I never knew my father. As an only child, I created my own world. I remember sitting under my double-high, twin-size bed, playing with my Barbie dolls. They were part of my family. I lose myself in my brain for hours. I love my safe haven, this escape from reality. Outside my Shangri-La lies darkness, sadness, shame, guilt, loneliness, despair, and a multitude of other self-deprecating emotions. Painful memories, regretful decisions, like plucking and shaving the hairs on my chin and face. And opportunities not taken, like attending a college outside of my hometown. Here lives regret. Here resides low self-esteem. Here I refute self-love. I have always been a big girl. It's always been difficult to look in the mirror. So when I was 28 and became HIV positive, I spiraled deeper into loathing. He claimed to love me, yet he infected me. I remained numb for what seemed like an eternity. If I ignore this reality, will it no longer exist? I waited 10 years to finally disclose my status to my family. To this day, it is still difficult to allow my negative husband to love me. I hold on to a past I cannot control, to lies I've told myself for decades. Shame and guilt have been my best friends. Am I ready to challenge myself to be the person I know I am? Some part of me must love myself. I'm accepting myself more with each sunrise. I'm recognizing the personal strengths I know I have, but I'm afraid to follow. I made bad decisions, but that doesn't make me a bad person. I strive to let go of the anger, the shame, the embarrassment, and guilt. I aspire to start living again. I'm scared. The quiet brings chaos. When I'm alone, it's like I'm a child again. I create a different reality. There's so much I want to change. I want to be able to walk up a flight of stairs comfortably, to love myself, be empowered, use my strength, my brain, my education. I'd love to finally be spontaneous without consequences. Goodbye guilt. Goodbye shame. Goodbye lies. Goodbye manipulation. Hello, Mary.
Dear Ajani and Keelani, you were probably too young to remember, but I will always remember. I was sitting in a hospital room with you by my side. Ajani, you were just 10. Keelani, you were 9. The nurse walks in and blurts out, Miss Robinson, you're HIV positive. My heart was racing. I was too upset to cry. The room was closing in on me. I jumped up and wanted to strangle her. I wanted to tell you at the right moment. I turned to you and said, she don't know what she's talking about. I lived for years since that day thinking, if I don't take these pills, does that mean this will disappear? If I don't tell people, including you, does that mean this will change the truth? Years later, I was headed to the casino, but I didn't make it there. I'm parked on a cliff. I think about driving over it and ending this all. But then I think about you and my grandkids and wondering how you will live without me after learning my secret and keeping you in the dark and leaving you alone in this world. Then you started going to Camp Kendall, where you learned about HIV and AIDS stigma, making new friends and staying in touch with them yearly, bringing home t-shirts with all your friends' names. All of these friends have been close to someone with HIV and AIDS in their lives. One day you asked me, Mama, why did we go to this camp if we don't have AIDS? I jumped up from the table, grabbed my cigarettes, and ran to the liquor store. I needed time to think. How can I explain this to you in a way that you will understand? We were playing a game. I see a sign with HIV/AIDS on it. What do you think of that? What? I don't see that sign. You're looking at it. The look on your faces, you were astonished. You know the little white pills in that drawer? Those are mine, and they keep me healthy. Today, I am empowered. I have a community that helps me when I'm stuck. I have case managers that I call and talk to when I don't have the answers. So what do I want to tell you today? Today, my life feels full of love, laughter, and stories because of you, my babies. I decided to stay on God's green earth because of you. I couldn't imagine us separated. I couldn't imagine life without your hugs and your love.
I was 11 years old for a long time, with a grandmother who loved me, but no father and only empty promises from my mother. Searching for love, yet not loving myself, allowing my life to be controlled by my addictions to drugs and men. And then at the age of 43, I received the diagnosis of HIV/AIDS when I was in prison. Stacy Hill, register number 61914 to medical. Why are they calling me to medical? I don't have an appointment. When I got there, the doctor asked how long I had HIV. There was an awkward silence. Then I responded, I don't have HIV. The doctor said, yes, you do. The shower. The only place in prison where I can be alone, behind a thin plastic curtain, voices echoing down the halls. I let it all out. I couldn't scream, but I could cry. And I did for a good long time. I felt like I had nothing to live for, but I didn't have the guts to kill myself. I had a 6-year-old daughter at the time. My first thought was, I'm going to die. I had failed at being a parent, but I never felt like a failure until that moment. I didn't think I could be around anyone for fear of them getting AIDS. Not until I got out of prison, had my parole revoked, and was returned to prison for what was the last time did I accept my diagnosis. I have HIV. HIV does not have me. 2 days after, I was released, and the first person I encountered in my family who knew about my HIV status would turn out to be the last person I would ever want to know. If only I knew how she, my oldest daughter, would stigmatize me. I always thought HIV was a disease for gay men. So how did this happen to me? Then I realized I was stigmatizing them. But after living the stigma, I became educated. I wanted to learn everything. What I believed was my plight turned out to be my blessing. Who did this to me? Why was this happening to me? The shouldas and the wouldas came pouring in.
I started questioning myself. At last, acceptance. No one to blame but me. You've never asked me how I felt about having HIV, or how you feel about me having HIV. You make me feel like I'm already gone. See me. Don't see HIV. I love you all. I want you to celebrate my life, the journeys, the challenges, the joys, the pains, but most of all, the times we are sharing right now. Let's live in the present. Let's enjoy these moments.
My darkest moment. Laying on the bed, room dark with the smell of old man and alcohol, wondering why my father had his hand under my shirt. Confused, scared, and alone. Sounds of my mother just feet away in the kitchen, not knowing how to tell anyone. The darkest moment. Sitting on the floor, walls closing in, tears streaming down my face, nowhere to run or hide. Nurse in scrubs walking out as I grasp for the thin air, just been told that I was HIV positive. Our darkest moment. Visiting the specialist, being told to abort my child, looking at each other with a blank stare, knowing that it wasn't going to happen. The doctor gave us 10 minutes to think about it. 10 minutes. No, sir. Stay in the room. It's not going to happen. The darkest place becomes the bright place. The birth of my child, a beautiful boy who was perfect in our eyes. The smile on his face, the laughter in the room, the ray of our sun reflecting our love. He is perfect. Where is the doctor now? My son becomes my solid rock and becomes my life. Family is everything. Husband and son with smiles on their faces. As I leave the picture, I turn back to see the sun reflecting on their faces. It overpowers the shadow of darkness which consumed the hurt. The dark life doesn't exist anymore. Even though my husband is no longer with us, the sun is shining, the stars are bright, and a new day begins. All that matters is my family that God has protected. He brings joy, laughter, blessings when the day ends and a new day begins.
You don't know me, you don't know my life, so fuck off. Wise words from a sex worker friend of mine. I look at my life, like so many women living with HIV, I'm a collection of traumas, challenges, and scars. I wasn't always like this. I remember running in the backyard, going nowhere, but exulting in the movement. So free, so full of joy that words were not enough. I was Max, and the wild rumpus was beginning. Where did that go? As I grew up, I felt different, so out of place. I wanted nothing more than to belong, to be like others, to look, act, and feel like everyone else. My hair was long and curled. I wore dresses that my grandmother made for me. I felt numb. I lay in bed, dreaming that I was this girl, but I knew I was not. So I gave my power away. I let others determine what was pretty, what was worth complimenting. When people told me to smile, I really tried. I gave my power away with both hands to people who didn't really even want it, to people who didn't have my best interests at heart. In my search to fit in, I allowed it all. Why do we give our power away when we can be so powerful? I finally feel real, solid, and honest. I concede nothing. I scream truth to power. I remember thinking I should sit down, that I shouldn't draw attention to myself or be so loud. For the first time, I didn't listen, but I yelled louder until myself and the world could hear. I am incredible just the way I am. My life and my husband are my blessings. My sisters living with HIV are more amazing, and we are powerful together. We change the world. So you don't know me. You don't know my life. But if you did, you would know that I am awesome.